Welcome into the I-80 Boys College Football Show. Chris, we've got a little Georgia-Bama, the preview coming at you guys right now. Chris, I'm going to start off. I'll take Georgia in this one, right? Look, Georgia's coming off a pretty down game against Kentucky where they only put up 13 points and won by a single digit. So a down performance, to say the least. Georgia's been opening the game to me, opening their games really conservatively. And they almost seem afraid of starting games trying to stretch the field. I mean, I want you to think about this. If you truly believe Carson Beck is a legit Heisman contender / potential first overall draft pick, at least first round draft pick of a quarterback back there, let him cook. Let him throw the ball. I mean, look, his numbers aren't bad. He has 700 yards and 7 touchdowns this season. So not bad, but I mean, he's struggled at times throwing the ball down the field. And I think a lot of that's very rhythmic. I think a lot of it is, I don't care how much we're winning these games by. I care about the outcome, which is he getting better? Is he any better than he was last year? That's the question, because that's what you're going to have to ask yourself when you take on an Alabama team this week that beat you last year. I know Saban isn't roaming the sideline, right? Obviously, I'm a Georgia fan. I think we all rejoiced the day he retired, but come on, we got to get a little bit better there, and the offense has to pick it up. One thing I will say, though, Georgia has done a fantastic job at spreading the rock around. I mean, I'm looking for guys like Dominic Lovick, Arian Smith, Colby Young. They're going to be Beck's guys. They're going to be the go-to guys in this one. The running back room, I mean, they're going to look towards Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier, the freshman who's caught Chris's eye and caught the nation's eye, especially in that Clemson game, to lead the way in this one. To me, the O-line, I mean, they're a little banged up, so I'm curious to see how they're going to handle Alabama's defense coming into this one. This is going to be a great test to kind of see how they can manage that. On defense, Georgia still has a top 10 defense. They're going to shut down the Crimson Tide's number 25 ranked total offense. Okay, so this is going to be a great test for them. Because Georgia hasn't allowed a touchdown all year. Pretty impressive of a stat. So you gotta enjoy that. To me, what this game comes down to, Chris, is just they got to contain Bama's run game. And I want to kind of dig a little deeper into that. We know Alabama at times wants to play murder ball, run the ball down your throat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They got to keep Jalen Milroe from getting out of the pocket. That's where Georgia's been diced up over the years, and that's where Milroe can make you pay. If he can get outside that pocket, it's not there. It's basically like having another running back there that can throw the football, so it's pretty dangerous. Here's the thing. Georgia gave up 170 yards last week to Kentucky. Right? I know Kentucky, physical team, whatever have you, they can run the football, but 170 yards to Kentucky, it might get a little – Bama might put up over 200 yards if they're not careful. We know Bama also is a top 20 team at running the football as well, so look out for that. Georgia's been really banged up, and I will say this about that. Georgia's been pretty banged up, especially on that defensive line. They're going to need guys like Michael Williams. They've already said he's questionable to come back this week, so it's probably likely, if he can go, that he'll play in it. But they also need Warren Brinson back, in order to shut down this potent Alabama offense, I think. Jalen Walker, I mean, he's another guy, I think, that's stepped up in the absence of Michael Williams. And, I mean, he's just been constantly living in backfields. So he's going to have to make Milroe's life a living hell in this one and kind of keep him contained. The last thing I want to talk about, and Chris, I know you're going to talk about him, you've got to figure out a way to shut down Alabama's biggest offensive weapon, and that is a 17-year-old phenom in Ryan Williams. Okay, the Bulldogs secondary, they got to come correct, and don't let him get behind you. With that, Chris, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, no, good points. I'm going to elaborate here on Alabama a little bit. You brought up some really good topics here. I'm going to go through a few stats here. We know Alabama, right? 3-0. Western Kentucky dismantled them week 1. Week 2, they beat South Florida, pulled away late in that game. And then the big win with Wisconsin, right? I mean, they dismantled Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, I don't think, is a bad football team. That's definitely the best test that Alabama's faced so far. But Alabama's just way too much offensively in that game. You mentioned the stats here. I mean, they're averaging 49 points per game right now. That's 6th best in the country. You talked about Jalen Milroe. 35 of 52, 590 yards passing there, 67.3% completion percentage. So he's up from last year. He's got 8 touchdowns. He's got 0 interceptions so far this year. So very impressive there. He's also got the 36 rushes for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Look, you talked about the run game. Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, Yeah, Between them, 48 carries, 430 yards. They got 5 touchdowns. These guys are very, very good. One of the better duos in college football. You talked about my boy, Ryan Williams, the 17-year-old out there. This kid is electric, dude. And it seems like once, twice a game, he has some crazy-ass catch on the sideline. He burns some defender. They're going to have to watch out for him. Now, offensively, this is what's key in this game to me is can Alabama establish a run game against Georgia's front seven? We know both lines of scrimmage are good on both sides of the ball here, but if Alabama can't run the football, boy, you're putting a lot of faith in Jalen Milroe's arm. I'm not saying Jalen Milroe can't throw a ball, but he struggles intermediate routes. That's a huge plus for Georgia in this game if they can shut down the run game. Now, we talked about the defense a little bit. It's been amazing so far this year. It really has. They're only giving up 8.7 points per game, which is also 6th best in the country. The Campbell kid and Deontay Lawson, 2 linebackers for Bama, studs, leading the team in tackles. They're doing a great job back there. The secondary's been elite. Alabama's only giving up less than 115 yards per game through the air. Say what you will about some of the teams they've played there, but they've been very, very active back there. It's Malachi Moore, Keon Sabb. These guys are ball hawks. They've made a few plays, interceptions as well. Like I said, Alabama's defense has surprised me this year so far, especially on the back end. Look really, really good. Like I said, and if you're Bama in this game, can you make UGA one-dimensional? UGA has made a living the past 4 years, Christian. You know this better than anybody, being a very balanced offensive team. I mean, they can run, they can throw, they do them both very well. That's a huge thing. So my prediction, and before I get in my prediction, I think this game will be won and lost in the trenches. I said this last year in the SEC title game. I thought Alabama beat the hell out of Georgia, especially in the second half, and that's why they won that football game. We know that Georgia has struggled against Alabama historically, but there's no Nick Saban there. I don't know how much that means in this game. Look, I'm on the Bulldogs here. I got Georgia 23, Alabama 21.
Yeah, Chris, I'm going to take a slightly different approach to that. I agree with everything you said, by the way. Spot on, analysis there. I got Georgia 24, Alabama 28.